completely diss the dude, but come on. I'm just spilling all the tea. Hi, Ainsley. I'd like you to hear stories about when the adults in your life were your age. Because like I've told you before, you are so far ahead where anyone was at your age. At 21, I was barely functioning. I'd only lived in the real world for a couple of years. I moved to Portland in 1990, and I mean, I hadn't been able to take a daily shower, or I didn't poop in the house. You know, that sounds weird, but you know, I mean, I was a wild animal when I left Alaska and arrived here. So when I turned 21, I had only been living in the conventional world for a few years and was still trying to get my feet under me, and basically just followed my friends around because I didn't know what else to do. And I had to have the lady at Wells Fargo teach me how to balance my checkbook. I left you a voicemail with a couple of the quick stories about, like, when your dad was 21, he was driving strippers around and marrying people so that they could have insurance, and attempting to perform insurance fraud by pouring gasoline all over her car and then trying to catch it on fire. I mean, they're gonna get caught for that. You know, he was a binge drinking alcoholic and addicted to cigarettes, and he was not top end material, but neither was I. And that's how I ended up with him. We were friends, and we did enjoy each other's company. I don't want to say that he wasn't. I mean, our first number of years together were actually pretty great. So when we were your age, and when I say we, I have in mind your dad, all of my coast trip friends that you went to college with, Piper, your dad's sisters and brother. Yeah, so that's, I have all of us in mind when I'm saying, when we were 21, or around that age, every one of us was a binge drinking alcoholic. Some of us were more than binge drinkers. Many people, like your dad, Jill, Jesse, I'm sure I'll be able to think of some other folks. They were, Uncle Kelly, all addicted to cigarettes. Uncle Tom got sent to the military when he was 19 because he broke into the dentist's office next door to our house. Next door to our house, mind you. He broke into and stole a bunch of drugs or something, and his option was either go to the military or go to jail. Let's see what else. We always brought our drugs from Jesse, mostly mushrooms. I think we probably bought weed from him too, but weed also came from other places. Like one time, Frank always rode his bike everywhere. And one time he was riding his bike and he happened to notice in the ditch there was a bag of weed. So he brought it to me because I was the only one he knew who smoked weed. And so from there on out, we always called that the ditch weed, and it cracked us the fuck up. And I even got Coco and Sara high one time. I don't know if either of them ever done it again. We had a harrowing drive to take Sara home because she could not handle not being at home. And I lived at Coco and I lived on 24th and Taylor, Southeast 24th and Taylor. And Sara and Frank lived over off of Boundary and Corbett. And so that's not an extremely long drive, but it's too long when you're high. This was one time that I made an exception because Sara could not relax. I was like, I have to be home. She was pretty sure her feet were shooting through the floor to the downstairs apartment, and she was extremely confused about the passage of time and needed to be constantly reassured that we were making progress towards her home, that time had actually passed, and that everything was gonna be okay. And then when we arrived at Sara's, I was having an extremely hard time parking because I'm high and have poor spatial awareness, and Sara couldn't put her key in the lock to get into her house because she just couldn't. And some of the stuff we were doing around your age, I think this would have been more around 22 or 23, Piper and I made a commitment to each other that we would get high every single day, whether we wanted to or not. So it was a mission, and there was a few times that we had to like talk one or the other into it. Be like, I don't want to get high today. I've been high every day for a long time. I don't want to. You have to. You promised you would get high every day with me. So it was a fun summer. Did a lot of camping. I don't know, just had fun. we had dumbass jobs. He worked at J.C. Penney, and he had to wear a suit because back in those days at J.C. Penney, they paid shoe salesmen commission, and they had to wear suits because I think they were trying to be like Nordstrom. I would have been working, I probably was doing temp job. I did a lot of temp work right out of college, and then I started working for Crimson Trace, which was the laser sighting device for handguns manufacturing business that started as an engineering firm, that I was working for the engineering firm as the office manager. Well, the receptionist at first, but eventually I was the office manager. I was working for the engineering firm, and then they started Crimson Trace Corporation, and I worked there for several years. Was the best salesperson they had. Went to some pretty friggin' big gun shows, and like traveled around the country to go to gun shows. Atlantic City was so fucking nasty. They were very sexist, and there was like naked women posters in the shop. And one time they told me, well, we don't want to send you on sales trips anymore because we can't put you in the same hotel room as the guys. We don't want to pay for another hotel room, so you can't go. It was soon after that I left, so I was like, fuck you guys. But the cool thing about Crimson Trace is that because it was a startup, and because a lot of us, myself included, put in a lot of extra work, I always got paid. They didn't. But anyway, we put in a lot of extra work, and were given stock options. When they realized they wanted to go public, they started buying everybody's stock options, and the first time I elected to only sell a portion, and we made $45,000 off of those. Then a few years later, they wanted to buy the rest of the stock options. They didn't want anybody having any anymore, and paid me $75,000 for that. That is how we were able to go into business with the handyman service. Joan drew our logo. It was very adorable, of a little guy in a kilt and some tools and the Campbell crest, and it was adorable. It was overly complicated for a logo, but it was adorable. And then eventually we just simplified it to the Campbell shield, Highland Helpers. HH, I think. I think we put HH on the inside. Yeah. Anyway, that's not when we were your age. I was just working for Crimson Trace when I was your age. I think that's a good place to stop for now. So every once in a while, we would go out with Aunt Jill. Aunt Jill was always extremely fun to go out with. But I also all knew that something really fucking crazy was going to happen every time. And you never knew what it was going to be. And you also knew that you were most likely going to be up really late. Maybe all night. So, one of the times I can remember is we had gone to a dance club. It's still in existence. It wasn't the Silverado. Quest? Was it Quest? No. Anyway, it was a dance club. And we used to go to it a lot. There weren't a lot of places to go dancing in Portland back in those days. We were dancing and we were drinking. We were just... Oh, I have to admit, I also used to smoke cigarettes once in a while, but only when I was drinking with Uncle Piper. Some reason. He could always talk me into at least having a little bit of cigarette, and we almost always stole things. See, I kind of wanted to come clean about all this stuff when we were still together, but yeah, Uncle Piper and I used to steal things at restaurants and fast food places, and like, we would just be, I want this salt and pepper shaker, and yeah, we would steal it. We stole a plant, which I actually had for a number of years, from Adele Taco in Spokane when we were up there for his grandma's funeral. There was one time that my friends and I'm pretty confident it wasn't me all by myself. I was generally more of a follower. I was rarely the one initiating these sort of things, but there was a ceramic pig at the in the dining hall at Lewis and Clark, and we decided that it needed to come home with us. And I kept it for a bunch of years. And I had a teddy bear hamster that used to crawl around on the floor now and then, and he loved to go inside the pig because it had a hole broken in it on the floor level, so he'd go hang out in the pig. See, oh, the story I meant to tell. So one night we're out with Aunt Jill, and we're drinking and we're dancing and we're doing whatever, and she's gone for a little while. We're starting to be like, God, we gotta figure out where the hell Jill went. Are we just gonna leave without her? We haven't seen her. And all of a sudden she's like, come on, we gotta go. I have a ride for us. we're gonna go to a party. And I was like, I don't like going to parties with you at 3 a.m. Jill. Shit always goes down pretty fucking weird. And she convinced us to go. We come out of the club, we go outside with her, and waiting for us is a limousine Suburban with a bunch of people in it doing cocaine. And I have never been comfortable with cocaine. I don't want to be around it. I don't want to be around people who are on it. And so when I found out there was cocaine going on in the goddamn limo, I was really unhappy. But I still, what else am I gonna do? I'm with them, and there's nowhere else for me to go. There's no Uber and Lyft back in those days. So we go to some fucking weird ass party and hang out for a while. But the fun part was the limo, but then it wasn't, the surprise limo, but then it wasn't as fun when I realized that there was a bunch of fucking drunk asses all on cocaine in there. Let's see. A couple of times we had to protect her from going to jail. She would get into fights. She was extremely combative, especially when drunk. And there just always seemed to be somebody that she was like getting up in their face and yelling and chest bumping them. And I really loved going out with her because it was so exciting and it was usually fun, but it almost always ended in tears and drama. I have a vague recollection of a car being stolen. That wasn't me. It wasn't me. I do know that Aunt Jill pretty much never had a license because she kept getting caught drunk driving. And she'd get caught, and then she would also not only get a DUI, but driving without a license. And so she'd go to jail for a little bit now and then, or she got in a bar fight or some shit. That's why it was exciting, but also scary to go out with her. Yeah. Anytime I went out with Aunt Jill, it was like that. It was just fucking crazy. You never know what's gonna happen. Usually it's fun, mostly it's chaotic, sometimes it's not, and sometimes the cops get involved. So that was going out with Jill. One of the times we were out with Jill, it was Halloween. We were still drinking. It was probably sometime around, I don't know, I'm guessing 2010. Anyhow, it was Halloween, and we wanted to get dressed up and go out to a really divey bar. But that, anyway, they had a huge costume party on Halloween. And I used to hate Halloween. I hated trying to figure out what my costume would be. I always felt terrible dressing up. It's really embarrassing. I dressed as a prostitute like a whole bunch of Halloweens because I didn't know what else to wear. And it just seemed like everybody else dressed sexy for Halloween. And so I'm like, well, fine, I'll be a fucking prostitute again. Because I was very unimaginative. But anyhow, this year that I'm talking about, I, again, did not have a costume. Jill got me dressed up. She put me in a bustier. Was that before my breast reduction? I don't know. I'll have to try to remember if it was before my breast reduction or after my breast reduction. I think it was before, because I was really embarrassed about being in a bustier because my boobs were big. But I also felt sassy and sexy. So she puts me in a bustier, and I think we painted my face like a sugar skull. So yeah, so I was a sexy sugar skull. So this was a Jack in the Box incident. Bill was with us too, that's right. So your dad's Jack in the Box, and his head was amazing. I don't know if you remember it, but it was paper mache, and it really did look like Jack from a distance. Close up, no, not so much, but it was good enough. So anyhow, he's dressed like Jack in the Box, and actually he's looking pretty good. We're dancing, we're having fun, and then I notice, this is my fault, this is the first time I ever got us dressed up, the only time I ever got us thrown out of a bar. Anyhow, I notice this guy dressed as Jack in the Box, and I decide to be sassy, and I go fucking with him and saying that his Jack in the Box costume was shittier, was nowhere near as good as my husband's, and I think there was a contest or something, so I don't know, I was trying to psych out the other guy, the other Jack in the Box, and I was too drunk and I was obnoxious. I think Jack in the Box guy and maybe his girlfriend, I don't know, got like in my face about it. Like, leave us the fuck alone. Or I really don't recall. I just know we were on the dance floor and I started it and we got in trouble. I got pulled off the dance floor to get a talking to by State. And Jill came with me and was defending me and almost got us in trouble because she was trying to defend me and my behavior. But I'm like, it's fine. Jill, stop it. I'll just go hang out by the bar. A little while later, Jeremy and Jill come running out, and no, Jill was getting forcefully removed from the bar by a security guard. Jeremy was right behind her, also had a security guard on him, realistically. I just don't recall exact details. And I'm like, holy shit, that's my husband and sister-in-law getting taken out of the bar. So Bill and I went out to see what the hell's going on, and they were like, yeah, we got back in the fight with Jack in the Box and his girlfriend, and so we got kicked out. So that was the time I got us kicked out of the bar without really participating in the getting kicked out of the bar. I just started the fight that eventually led to us getting kicked out of the bar. So that was the time your aunt and dad and I got kicked out of a bar because I got in a fight with a Jack in the Box. I'm gonna stop there. Okay, bye.